Hi, I'm Rebecca Hope, the Executive Director of Mid-Metro Academy. Thanks for joining me for this short video. I'd like to speak with you about how Mid-Metro Academy can help you bypass the reading crisis. There is a reading crisis happening right now, and more publications are putting out articles about the serious issue that is going on with young people and their ability to read. It's not that they can't read, but it's the type of reading that our students are doing and are not doing, and how that is affecting their performance in college and their understanding of long texts. So these are just some examples of some of the articles that have come out in the last 3 years or so that are showing that readers, students who are entering college as freshmen, really do not have the same reading skills as college freshmen did in the past. So students, yeah, as I said, they can read, but they lack the stamina for long-term, long-form texts. In other words, books or lengthy articles. So they are able to find facts if they have a short excerpt, let's say a page or so, but they do not follow a longer, extensive uh, piece of writing. They can't really figure out the organization of that and stay with it long enough to interpret it. And they may be looking for facts, but they're not really getting the overall meaning of the piece as a whole. Well, there are many reasons for this. Uh, I say it's a perfect storm that all these things have come together to affect our younger generation now and change the way that they approach reading. First, we had the COVID-19 lockdowns, and then during that time and immediately afterwards, we wanted to give students a lot of grace. There was so much stress during that time, and so that resulted in some lowered expectations. For quite some time, there's been a complaint that K through 12 education tends to teach toward the standardized test, and that results in teaching students to look for bits of information that will answer a question rather than looking for broader meaning in a text. For many years, there's been a large emphasis put on STEM, the science, technology, and mathematic fields. Uh, and that great emphasis on STEM, because that is where the jobs are and have been, that tended to reduce the interest and the emphasis placed on the humanities. Uh, in favor of something that was more practical and would result in the student being able to earn a living. And part of that, too, is from college tuition costs being so high that it was felt that you have to make it worth the money and you better get a good paying job as a result of this education. So again, the humanities majors were de-stressed, and those are the ones that teach students how to look for meaning in these longer texts of reading. Then, of course, there's just been the explosion of screen time, cell phones and computers and other devices, and students learning from young grades in many cases to be find their information from these sources. So, but we now know that the reading on screen is a very different process than reading in a physical book. For one thing, the eye movement across the page is different, and it your eyes are looking for facts instead of flowing through a piece of printed material in page by page process. So this also sets up the reader for wanting to get in and out quickly, to look for what you need and then get off the screen or move to a different screen. And so that whole engagement with screens actually changes the way the brain reacts and the eyes react. And then also there's the issue of how quickly things change on, let's say, a social media site or other websites, that quickly changing content every 47 seconds or so, that releases some dopamine chemicals in the brain, and it rewards going through things quickly. You're looking for that next stimulation, right? So all of these things now have joined together on the younger generation, and we see that they face multiple assaults on their reading stamina, their ability to stick with a longer text, and the cognitive patience. Do they have the patience to follow an argument, or do they need to get on to that next exciting bit of information? So this comes with some pretty significant risks. We know there's something called the Matthew effect, and that means that the less students read, the more difficulty they have with reading, and the less enjoyable it becomes for them. And so the less they read. So it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of less and less reading. Some high school graduates, as a result, will say, I don't want to go to college because there would be too much reading there. And even as adults, then they may just avoid reading and never become solid readers who can read lengthy pieces and understand them. Now, even if someone decides to go to college, they will get there, and professors are saying that they routinely assign, 40-page reading assignment for the week, or maybe well more than that. And students now are just saying they do not even know how to approach a long reading assignment like that. And so they will turn to finding a summary of it online or asking an AI to summarize the long text, and they will never actually read the text themselves. And you can see what a danger that would be, because if you are relying on some computer algorithm to summarize something for you, or even a person, you are putting yourself under that person or machine algorithm's interpretation of that article. So someone who is doing that is subject to being manipulated, right? And is also somebody who has not learned to think critically and would not be trustworthy in being able to participate fully in our society as a thinking person. Well, you might say, well, I'm a homeschooler, so that doesn't apply to me. Unfortunately, teachers, my fellow teachers at Mid Metro Academy, where we have taught hundreds of students since 2020, and many of us were at Yay Academy before that, we have noticed a definite decline in our students' ability to grasp and interpret and grapple with these longer form readings that our previous students prior to 2020 were able to handle. So this is something that applies to our wonderful students at Mid-Metro, who are very smart, but are also not immune to this reading crisis that is upon us now. So Mid-Metro Academy wants to help you address this reading crisis and, as I said, bypass it so that it is not going to have those negative effects on your student. So we've put together a four pillar framework that we believe will build solid reading skills in your student. So the first one is to participate in Mid-Metro's Pizza for Pages reading contest, and that is all about encouraging students to read lots of age-appropriate novels through the school year. The second pillar is to enroll your student in a literature class. The third is to create a reading friendly and reading focused environment within your home. And the fourth is to apply those long form reading skills, not just in the English reading literature classes and the reading that they do in novels, but also to extend that to all subjects and to find, well, I'll explain that in a moment. So let me explain each one of these pillars. First, our Pizza for Pages reading contest. We began this in the last school year because we were aware of this problem with incoming freshmen at college not being able to manage the longer texts. And so the solution we came up with was to start this reading contest at Mid-Metro. And a lot of our students, about 80 students, participated last year. And the way it works is that you, as the parent, will sit down with the student and set a reading goal for how many pages the student can read during that month. Then the student will read the novels that have been selected between the parent and the student and record the pages read. And if the goal is met, then parents receive this page of stickers, and they can apply one of those stickers to this filled in entry form. The student comes to Mid-Metro for classes on Monday or Wednesday, presents the validated contest entry form, and they will receive a Pizza Bucks coupon, which they can then exchange for a free piece of pizza at the lunchtime. Then we take those entry forms and we keep a running totals of students and how many pages they've read. And at Christmas time, and then at year end, we award the readers, the top readers in each grade category. So fifth and sixth graders, seventh and eighth graders, ninth and 10th graders, and 11th and 12th graders. So we had some readers who read a lot last year and were rewarded with some great prizes. So we'll be continuing that again this year. Our second pillar in this four-pillared framework is to sign your student up to take one of Mid-Metro Academy's literature courses. We have three of them. Donna Rando teaches the World Cultures and Literature class for grades 5 through 8, and that's going to be a terrific class. They're going to read 10 historical novels in that class, and it's really three classes in one because it'll be geography, history, and literature and English class. Then I teach two other literature classes. The Celebrate America Unit Study is a literature class, living books unit study class that is based on my own fiction, historical fiction novel, Matilda's Eden. That is just a fall class, and that is for students in grades 6 to 12. And it's multidisciplinary, so students will not only be learning the English language arts skills there, but they'll also have geography, history, civics, art, and a variety of other classes, worldview, theology, and so on. So that is available for students in grades 6 to 12. And then Read, Think, Write is my high school English class that I recommend for every high school student because it exposes students to movements in literature and in history that they will just need to be an informed member of our society, knowing about these trends in Western history and writing. And there's a lot of critical thinking that is taught in that course and a lot of group work. So those you can sign up for on our website at midmetroacademy.com/register. Now, you might be tempted to say, my students read a lot at home. They read so many books. They've always read a lot of books. Why would they need a literature class? Well, I think that many homeschoolers believe that. We have historically had a hard time attracting students to literature classes, both at Yay Academy, where the predecessor to Mid-Metro, and at Mid-Metro Academy. But that's unfortunate because literature classes do teach some of the same skills that students will learn from independent reading, but they build upon those skills and expand upon them and offer benefits that students will not get from just reading independently. So the independent novel reading, as I said, we want that. We love that. We want students to participate in the reading contest, and that develops reading comprehension, vocabulary, character development, and empathy, helps them to manage their time and to improve their attention and focus, and develops a lifetime love of reading. So we're very pro independent novel reading. But there are some skills that just don't come to the person who reads independently. A facilitated literature class with an experienced literature instructor adds a lot more for the student. And these are higher level skills that are very much necessary in college if the student is college bound, but are also highly valued by employers who are looking for people who can solve problems and work with people and demonstrate those soft skills that are so important in hiring and in the workplace. So literature classes develop analysis and synthesis skills, being able to understand these deep concepts, symbolism and similes, and lots of things that the independent reader may kind of run across and kind of think about, but will not learn in a systematic way. They'll learn to evaluate arguments. That's what we call rhetorical evaluation. They'll do writing about the literature so that they're processing it. And they'll do speaking, which the independent reader probably doesn't have. And as they bounce their ideas back and forth off of other students, that develops enhanced empathy. So they'll understand how other people think, and they'll develop teamwork. Um, because of that, abilities to bounce ideas back and help convince other people to come around to your point of view. Not that it's all argumentative, but just a soft, persuasive way of explaining your point of view and seeing if you can get somebody to agree with it. And that's problem solving as well. And then something we call metacognition, where you start to think about the way you think and understanding your own thought processes of why did I believe that about that character, and why did my classmate believe something different about the same situation. So these are very high level skills that students do not learn just from independent reading. And students nowadays are unlikely to get these in college because only 25% of colleges are now requiring literature classes. So students may have the chance to take a literature class at college, but many won't. So they won't be able to fit it in, or they won't have the interest. So the time to have your students learn and pick up these skills that are so important for college and for life is when the student is in secondary school, junior high, and high school. Now, here's our special offer. We just instituted late fees for registrations now at Mid-Metro Academy because we are at the July 15th late fee deadline. But because I want students and families to be able to take advantage of these literature classes, we are going to waive that late fee for anyone who registers for any of these three literature classes until they meet their enrollment ceilings. So for the Cultures and Literature class, the Celebrate America Unit Study, and Read, Think, Write, that $25 per class late fee will not apply. So what you'll need to do is after you sign up for the class on the website, email help@midmetroacademy.com. Mention that you've enrolled and that you want the late fee waived and give that discount code, which is PILLAR 2. All right, because it stands for the second pillar of our four-pillar framework. Now, here's the third pillar, and that is to create a reading-focused environment at home. So you can do that by role modeling and being a role model to your student as a good reader yourself. So you should be reading, parents should be reading long form works and in the presence of their students. You can institute read aloud times. These are often done in elementary school, but may have been abandoned because you know that the student can read their own books now. But it still really is a great bonding time and will increase the pleasure and the priority that young people put on reading when this is made a priority family time. Uh, just discuss books that you're reading and that they're reading just as you're doing things around the house or driving somewhere. Make this just a part of your family dynamic. Uh, it's a good idea for each person in the family to have their own little reading corner. So the favorite chair, the pillows that you lean against, the place where you set your drink, the place where you can lay your books, your reading stack, and so on. And you could even make some family rules about, okay, as long as you're in your reading chair and reading, I'm not going to bother you to take out the garbage or something like that, right? So those things can be motivating for students. A nice scented candle or aromatherapy, a fuzzy blanket. So something to make that a very cozy and special place designed for reading. I know a lot of people do like to read on Kindle, and I'm not going to say that you shouldn't read on Kindle or have your student read on Kindle. Some people especially love it for traveling, for example. But as I mentioned previously, there is a difference in the way that your eyes and brains engage with digital text as opposed to the printed page. And if you think about it, you know this has probably happened to you that when you've read a physical book and then you think about recalling something, you're like, oh, I know that was in the middle of the page, about a quarter away through the book and halfway down on the left side. And so you have a tactile memory that helps to reinforce the learning and what you have internalized as you're reading, and that is an important thing. With a digitized text, though, it's just like an ongoing stream, and you have less of that consciousness of how far through the book am I, and where and when did this certain event happen. So there is that value of printed books that the digital copies do not offer. Audiobooks, I think, are great. I do like still having printed books and recommend that, but audiobooks you can listen to as you're driving in the car or when you're around the house doing different chores and so on. So those are another way to just develop that constant exposure to the good stories and the good literature, the good vocabulary, all the great benefits that you get from the independent novel reading. And the fourth pillar is to apply the long form reading that students are developing across different subject areas. Don't just limit it to those novels, but have books, find books that will mesh with the other classes they're taking, whether those are history, science, art classes. Find some books. They could be fiction or they could be nonfiction, like biographies that will match the material that the students are learning. So this is a great way of reinforcing the learning uh, and applying those long form reading skills to nonfiction, which will be important for students in life and in college if they attend college. So our Mid-Metro Academy teachers are putting together some recommendations for students that will match their classes. So we'll get that list out to you. And then the last recommendation for that is to talk about those books too with your students, or maybe use them for your read aloud time. So just to sum up, Marianne Wolf is a neuroscientist who was interviewed in some of those articles that I mentioned at the beginning, and her admonition is here. She said the digital world encourages us to read for quick information rather than deep understanding. We must protect the deep reading brain because it is where critical thinking and empathy are born. Those obviously are two crucial, critical, essential qualities that we want our students to grow up having, right? And so there, she is saying that there's a deeper part of the brain where this long form reading takes place that does not take place in the digital sphere, right? And so I think that's a very good recommendation. So we would love to see you prioritize long form reading for your student this year. We'd like you to be able to bypass that current reading crisis that I mentioned. And this four-pillar framework will help your students develop those solid reading skills, and that will give them a sturdy foundation as lifelong readers. Thank you so much.